because, Rev, this is Trumpian politics first. You want headlines about some kind of deal before the actual trade negotiators reach a deal.
And to say that you want some kind of deal is absurd. I mean, he promised on day one many things he hasn't delivered. And now I think you said it best, to sell austerity rather than prosperity is something that is miles away from what he told his own constituents, but I think, or his own supporters. But I think what is even more important is that he does not have a deal. There is no deal. He's announced something with England today that we really don't know what that really means. We don't know what's going on with China. They can't even agree with who called the meeting. And in the interim, we have Mother's Day coming up Sunday. Flowers are up. He's telling kids that they can't have dolls. I mean, this is the worst of Trump fumbling the ball. And I think that a lot of the voters that supported him are starting to get voters' remorse or buyer's remorse.
Buyer's remorse, yeah.
Because I think that he clearly has not only not did what he said, he's doing the opposite. Is causing inflation, is causing it to stay where it is or rise, and is going to cause a lot to his base, farmers and others that depend on a lot of the things that he's putting tariffs on.
Yeah, and Catherine, we've seen that in the new polling that the tariffs are getting less popular the more people hear about them. We all cover stuff, right? There aren't a lot of 75% issues in American politics, really. I mean, you tell people, well, Biden did it or Trump did it, right away you start to get a fissure. 75% and growing is the concern. And I want to be clear, that doesn't mean that those Republicans are turning Democrat in the midterms. It just means they were rooting for Trump, they do like him, and they're still mad and concerned about tariffs. Where does the deal fit into that?
Well, Trump is essentially demanding wartime sacrifices from the American people, even as he's giving himself a military parade that will cost tens of millions of dollars. He's saying that we're going to have higher prices not only on dolls, he's acknowledging higher prices on all sorts of baby goods, strollers. He was asked about that explicitly in the NBC Meet the Press interview over the weekend. Today, he even said maybe we'll raise the tariffs on Mattel even higher. Mattel, which is the company that makes Barbie and Hot Wheels and a lot of other popular kids' toys, which he mistakenly thought was a country somehow.
Yeah, you know what? We'll play that.
I'd love that.
Mattel, I don't know. I'm not so sure. They also said they're the only country I've heard. They said, well, we're going to go counter. We're going to try going someplace else. That's okay. Let him go, and we'll put 100% tariff on his toys, and he won't sell one toy in the United States, and that's their biggest market. I heard that. I mean, I watched this guy talking about how I'm going to go counter. I said, well, I wouldn't want to have him as an executive too long.
I have no idea what any of that means, except that it's going to raise prices even higher. You asked about the UK trade deal, and I'm using scare quotes deliberately. There is no deal here. First of all, there was no problem that needed solving. As you laid out earlier, even if there were a trade deficit with another country, that doesn't mean they're taking advantage of us. It turns out we actually have a trade surplus with the UK. Right. So on many levels, this makes no sense. There's no problem to be solved, and there's also no real solution that has been proposed. I guess we're a little bit better off today than we were yesterday because some of the tariffs got taken down from 25% to only 10%, for example, on British cars, Rolls-Royces and Bentleys and other things I'm sure Americans are really concerned about the prices of. But we're definitely not better off than we were before Trump launched this multi-front trade war around the world.
Yeah, I don't even know if Rev likes Bentleys. He might prefer the Maybach. And I think you took a designer van to the Met, if I saw the photos correctly.
You were seeing the wrong photos, but
it was like a big thing you got out of.
Yeah, I got it. I don't even know.
It's like
what
a bus.
It is. Yeah, it's a bus. Yeah. That's what we had to ride. But
you see, Catherine, I know Rev so well that I can seed this into the larger conversation. But please, go ahead.
But I mean, it would be insulting to me if I was a blue-collar worker in one of the states that he won, and he's giving a reduction in tariffs to Rolls Royces and Bentleys and not concerned about things that I need to keep my business going, small businesses, farms. These are the people that he campaigned and rallied, and he rewards the elite, super rich, which he is a part of and which his cabinet is. I think that it is adding insult to injury.
And actually, I spoke with an economist today, Ed Gresser, who's at the Progressive Policy Institute, who's a trade economist. And I was asking him what kinds of Americans are going to be hurt most by these tariffs. You know, we know to some extent who buys more imported goods than others. And far and away, lower income people are going to be hurt the most, but also single parents going to be hurt. Rural Americans, more so than urban Americans, again, more likely to be Trump voters. And among other groups, military families. Military families are likely to be hurt more than civilian families. So, you know, it'd be bad if it hurt people in blue states, too, or, you know, diehard liberals. But just think about how much he is hurting his own base. To what end?
Well, and that's why it might be different than we've talked about rule of law, autocratic issues. Some people are concerned about deportations because they think it's wrong, or they understand if there's no due process that can affect you. But plenty of other people may not even hear about it, right? You're describing why it matters when people have this lived reality. And Trump's approach here has been to just sell everything upside down. Austerity or, hey, it's not happening. So most people involved in our economy know that you need activity and commerce to have jobs. So you can have, like, you know, your college seminar about capitalism and yada, yada. But most people say, yeah, well, we want things up, not down. You want people in the streets. You want people going shopping. It's not complicated. So when Trump is asked about the ports drying up, he's selling something that I don't think, as you said, MAGA or not, people think is a good thing. Take a look.
Because business has slowed down, as you mentioned, we're seeing
China.
But we're seeing, as a result, the ports here in the U.S., the traffic has really slowed, and now thousands of dock workers and truck drivers are worried about their jobs.
Yeah, no, that means we lose less money. You know, when I see that, that means we lose less money.
No, that's just not true. It's just not true. Not only are consumers going to be hurt by the fact that prices are going up and there will be shortages, whether we're talking about, you know, dolls from China, strollers, or produce from Latin America, there are a lot of workers who are going to be harmed by all of this, too. In that little clip that you showed, they talked about dock workers and truck drivers. We've seen layoffs there, or people having their hours cut back, but we're also seeing it in manufacturing. For example, Volvo announced, I think either today or yesterday, that they were having to cut staff at their South Carolina plant because they are hurt by tariffs too. When you tariff the inputs that manufacturers need, that hurts American workers as well. And Trump just seems to have no curiosity, or he's impervious to facts. I don't know, but he's obsessed with this.
You kind of know. You know a little bit.
Maybe.
But he's also insulting. I mean, to say that we'll lose less money, so will the workers, so will the farmers. They'll lose less money because they'll have less money to lose. And to act like people are buying $30, I mean, we laugh at what he said, but when you really look at it, is he suggesting that we're just gouging dolls and it's really no big thing? That in and of itself is offensive.
Well, and that speaks to the elitism, right, which is so interesting because Trump has always managed to move on a different scale because he was this reality show star and the party we know is loyal. Everybody knows that, I think, who follows the news. But that doesn't mean that he doesn't have gas. The doll thing is haunting him day after day after day because it's the kind of thing you say if you have no interaction with the real world.
Right.
Sure, there are some rich people who have endless toys, but most people save up and budget out holidays, vacations, gifts for their children. And those gifts aren't 10 of everything, right? I mean,
less known 30. I mean, to suggest that goes into that whole thing of the overconsumption of people, poor people or working class people. They don't have $30. What do you mean down to 2? So it suggests this kind of penthouse elitism that he thinks like that about people that have to work every day for a living.
Absolutely.
And I do want to emphasize it's not only these special occasions like Christmas that will be affected that feel very far off.
Right.
It's going to be shortages on shelves sooner than that if these tariff policies stay in place for groceries, for basic goods, diapers, all sorts of things that Americans buy that they can't find good substitutes for because they're not made in America, or they can't switch away.
Yeah, and that all of this is not some macro